If you've been following this channel or my Twitch streams or me in any capacity for the last several years or so, you'll know by now that I'm a pretty big Zelda fan. It's one of, if not my favorite game series. And yet for some reason I've never really talked about Zelda on this channel, and there's two main reasons for that, I think. The first is that as long as I've been running this channel, there really hasn't been like a major Zelda console release until very recently. The second reason is that a lot of people really like Zelda. There are so many large YouTubers who are constantly talking about it. You look at somebody like Peanut Butter Gamer, who has a whole month dedicated to making videos about Zelda, and several other people have followed suit. To me, it feels like everything that can be said about Zelda is constantly said over and over again, and I never have anything worthwhile to add to it. And so when Breath of the Wild came out earlier this year, I played the hell out of it. But I also didn't really want to do a review or anything because everybody was, and I felt like I would have just been contributing to the noise instead of actually saying something that was worth saying, I guess. That said, if anybody's curious, I absolutely love the game. I've put over 100 hours into it. I'm still playing it. I still haven't bought any other games for the Switch just because I want to wait until I'm actually done playing Zelda first. A couple weeks ago while I was streaming, somebody in the chat asked me if I was going to do a Breath of the Wild video. So I expressed my hesitation, and we talked about it a bit, and it led to a conversation that made me realize that I did have something I wanted to say. This doesn't have a lot to do with Breath of the Wild itself as a game, or how well it's made, or anything like that, but it is a kind of important general topic that comes up a lot, and Zelda found itself wrapped up in it when it came out a couple months ago. I decided that I really wanted to talk about the 10-point grading scale that we tend to use for games. As I'm sure all of you know, when Breath of the Wild came out, it was huge. Probably the most anticipated release of this year, except for maybe Mass Effect Andromeda, but that died out pretty fast. The reviews were almost overwhelmingly positive. It got so many perfect scores, it was insane. And then there came some reviews that were much less flattering. But I noticed one common thread in these critical reviews that came in the second wave. Almost all of them talked about the fact that the game was getting rave reviews, and then said something along the lines of, how can you give this a perfect score when it has this glaring problem? By the way that these other reviews are acknowledged, it almost sounds like the reviewer's opinion is changed by the fact that it knows about other people's opinions. You now know that they went into this review with the knowledge that other people thought this game was worthy of a perfect score, whatever that means to them. Does this mean they're now looking at the game in a different light than they would have if they were just taking the game as its base material without any knowledge of other people's thoughts or opinions? And I tend to be of the opinion that yes, it absolutely changes the way that you look at the game. At least I would hope so, because I know that it happens to me, and I'd like to think that I'm not the only one. I know for a fact that if I go into a game with the expectation that it is supposed to be perfect, and with everybody raving to me about it, that little asshole inside of me is just dying to find something in it to pick apart. Whereas if I have low expectations for a movie, say something like Suicide Squad, I can go into the movie, not take it as seriously, and find little things to entertain me, or things to enjoy. I get less upset by the quality of a film that I expect to be bad than the low quality of a film that I expect to be good. I really don't think it's possible to be both human and completely objective at any given time. We are social creatures, and we are incredibly aware of how we're being perceived by everybody around us. We care what people think about us, and we care what we think about what they think. And to that end, we always want to seem like we're one step ahead. So when there's a general consensus that something is incredibly good or incredibly bad, there's that little contrarian that makes you want to contradict it. I don't think this is something that's done with bad intent. I just think that everybody is driven at least a little bit by their egos. The first wave of reviewers got the game with no idea what was in it, with nobody else's opinion. The only thing that they really knew was stuff that people saw when they played the demo at E3 and stuff like that. When they played the game, they had the privilege of getting to play it with a completely open mind, and with no preconceptions and no opinions from other people being forced on them. And that's a luxury that really only they would get to have, unless you were really good at avoiding reviews and just keeping your head down and avoiding seeing anything whatsoever about one of the largest video game releases in recent history. It really makes me wonder what the people who never play Breath of the Wild until years down the line will think of the game. Because we've seen opinions on games change over the years drastically. I was just talking today with my friend Isaac, and we talked about Donkey Kong Country 64, a game that everybody lauded as just revolutionary and just a huge game at the time. And now everybody looks at it and thinks, they just think it's garbage. And I don't know what caused that shift. I don't know if it was the work of influencers and YouTubers with big followings and big opinions, but it's clear that that game was being viewed in a different way when it came out than it is now. And sure, you can just say it's an aging thing, but there are a lot of people who will defend something like Banjo-Kazooie, which was the same publisher on the same system. And you can even look at more recent games. You can look at something like Skyrim, which everybody praised like crazy when it came out, and just like a year or two later, everybody was already like, yeah, it's not actually that good. That initial impression you get with media when it's brand new, and when there's no preconceived notion about it, and there's no general consensus, and there's nothing out there to influence your mind, whether you want to agree with it or play the contrarian. I don't know whether that initial high is the best or the worst way to get an impression of the game. I just think that it does matter. And it's also tangentially related to why I really want to talk about the idea of a perfect game. Back when I was still writing for Gamnesia, they did this thing called Retro Reviews, and they asked me to fill the slot one week. And I had just played through Mega Man with Colby for a Let's Play, and I was like, you know what, I'll just do that one. And I was probably going to give it an 8 or a 9 or something, I don't know. I've never been huge on numbered scoring systems for a multitude of reasons, but I made a joke that I was going to give it a 10. And one of the other writers in that room freaked out. And he said something that I thought was really interesting. He said that you can't give Mega Man a perfect score because not everybody will enjoy that game. There are going to be people who dislike Mega Man, so therefore it doesn't deserve a perfect score. You understand, like, why that's a really stupid argument, right? And so, because he seemed really upset about it, I did give Mega Man a perfect 10. Because it's a review for like a 20-year-old game, so why does it matter what I score it? He posted a review he had been writing the next day, and it turns out that he didn't want me to give Mega Man a 10 because he thought it would steal the thunder from him giving Ni no Kuni a 10. So of course, I called him out on it, and I said, oh, but, I don't know, my roommate doesn't like Ni no Kuni. I mean, if somebody else doesn't like that game, well, it's not a perfect game. I didn't work at Gamnesia for very much longer after that, but it's so fascinating how people will take these completely subjective opinions, something along the lines of, everybody will like this, when that is just blatantly false. There is not a single game, a single movie, a single book that every single person can agree is good, outside of a Goofy movie. And even when it comes to my favorite games, games that I think are just some of the best out there, some of them being Zelda games, there are still things that I personally wish were different. But here's the thing. These games are never being made just for you. And they are being made by people with a wide range of different tastes and different ideas, and probably actually more knowledge about how to actually make a game. The idea of a perfect game needing to have everything be absolutely perfect and appealing to everybody, it's just the most foolish errand a fool could ever foolishly errandize. Is there like a verb form of errand? And it's because of that I really think a number scale for rating games is just stupid. When it comes to things like art or entertainment, where it is so largely driven by your personal taste, I feel like you get so much less out of slapping a number on something and trying to quantify it than you get out of just a description of what is in the game. And yet people place so much importance on these numbers, and they will just look at the numbers without reading the review, and they will freak out at Metacritic. And so whenever I had to actually grade on a number scale, this is the way I would look at it. It was never, am I absolutely completely satisfied with everything in this game? Because if that was the case, I would give a 6 to every game that didn't have a Chao Garden. I would ask myself, what is this game trying to do, and how well does it achieve it? Because sometimes I don't like games because I just don't like what they're trying to do. And it's not fair for me to say that it's a bad game because it just wasn't the game that I wanted. And this is where I see a lot of the criticism with Breath of the Wild stemming from. One of the major complaints that I saw was that it wasn't really a very good Zelda game because it didn't have a lot of dungeons. Okay, well, that's not the game it is. This is not a game that's focusing on dungeons. If your criticism is that the dungeons that are there aren't fun, then I can't tell you you're wrong about that. I personally really enjoyed them, but if you didn't, there's that subjectivity. But I never understood when people looked at a game and they said, yeah, well, it doesn't have this. What were they thinking? And in some cases I can get behind that, but I still feel like there's a difference between just being disappointed that something isn't a certain way and that being a mistake on the developer's part. When I look at Breath of the Wild, I see its mission statement in a couple parts. The first part is, we want to make exploration fun again. The second part is, we want people to be able to play this game in whatever way they want. And I feel like they absolutely crushed those goals. With the huge wave of open world games we've had in the last, I don't know, like decade or so, I've never really fully enjoyed exploring it. It always got old. This is the first time I have just enjoyed exploring an open world. The reason that I have over 100 hours in the game, even though I actually beat it at 60, is because I'm still enjoying just running around and seeing what's there. I can't remember the last time a game did that for me. And then, I mean, when it comes to playing it however you want, just talk to people about it. In my apartment alone, with the 3 different people that have played it, we have all played it in vastly different ways, and we've all got really great stories from it. I personally am a completionist, so I did every shrine, and I enjoyed doing every shrine. It didn't feel tedious to me. I felt like I had a goal, and seeing that number get closer to complete was just mwah. And the fact that there are 900 Koroks to find is actually kind of exciting to me. I understand why some people don't want to do it, and I'm glad that you don't actually have to find all 900 to, get all the rewards. But for somebody like me, if it's there, I'll do it, and I'll enjoy doing it. Then you've got Colby, who just wanted to screw around, and he's spent hours just shield surfing down huge mountains and seeing if he could make it. He just screwed around in that game, and he had a blast. And then Tyler kind of just focused on the adventure of it, and he had a blast. I understand if some people don't like the destructible weapon system. I personally really liked it. It's a big change that is a big subjective thing. But for what they were going for, I think it was a smart decision. It served the purpose of adding more variety so that people can play however they want, as well as making the idea of exploration more fun because now it's more intense. And it's also more rewarding because you might find really great weapons by exploring. And there's always that concern that you're going to go somewhere that you're not prepared for. I'm still playing Breath of the Wild and I'm still enjoying it, and I think that personally I probably would give it a perfect score, if only because I've been playing for over 100 hours and I'm still enjoying myself and I still have goals that I want to accomplish, and it hasn't gotten old for me. I understand why it wouldn't appeal to everybody, but I think saying this isn't my kind of game is very different than this isn't a good game. Why do you guys score so high? And I guess that's all that I really wanted to vocalize. I'm sorry that I took so long doing it. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about this below. I would love to discuss this more. I like to pontificate and go on for extended periods of time, as you can see, so anything that will extend this dialogue is greatly appreciated. They've been laughing since I can't remember, but they're not gonna laugh anymore.